Hi everyone, so we're live on Facebook tonight for SMA Awareness Month, and tonight we have Mary Bodzo, who is going to talk to us a little bit about the AA diet. So I'll hand it over to you, Mary.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having me. I'm Mary Bodzo. I have an adult with SMA type 2, and I changed her diet right before her 5th birthday, and she had tremendous improvement in strength and in wellness, and that's really what started it. When I put her on an elemental diet, I had always suspected for a long time that she was very reactive to foods and that nutrition played a big part in SMA, even though I was told by everyone that that wasn't the case. But you know, moms know things, and I just knew. She was also very sick. We were in the hospital a lot with respiratory problems, and once I changed her diet, honestly, that was 25 years ago, and she's never been back to the hospital for respiratory. So, of course, I felt compelled to share everything that I had learned on her. I told her she was a pioneer, but she always told me no, more like a guinea pig. But she was able to be a guinea pig because she was even though she's type 2 SMA, but she was, and she was diagnosed very early with type 2 SMA, started showing signs of issues at about 6 months. But she has 3 copies of SMN, and she, in some ways, you know, she was definitely a type 2, but in other ways not. So anyway, she was strong enough to experiment a little bit with, and we, over the years, with lots of input from other families that, you know, got on board with changing their child's nutrition as well, we just learned a lot, and we tweaked it for type 1s and G tubes and not G tubes, and older kids wanting to try it. And you know, I think probably over just the last 20 years, really, you know, it's still evolving as treatments become available and things change. But there's no doubt that nutrition and metabolism play a part in at least many SMA patients.
So Mary, can you tell me the basis of the AA diet, please?
The basics?
Yes,
yeah.
Please.
So the basics are to supplement free-form amino acid protein for intact dairy, soy, animal proteins, but even some kids seem sensitive to soy protein. And when you give the protein in the already broken down amino acid form, you know, a lot of different things take place. And so you're not, in my opinion, unprofessional opinion, I think that there was a lot less inflammation in my daughter. And so she didn't have that chronic congestion and just respiratory issues. And I think that made a big difference. And of course, as you all know, staying healthy, you don't have those declines that happen during illness as well. So I think it was, you know, different factors, but she definitely seemed to be reactive to the dairy-based formulas and foods. She ate by mouth. She still eats by mouth very well. Her swallow became stronger after I changed her diet. And like I said, her wellness and her strength, and just completely changed her quality of life. So, and I've had reports of that, you know, from hundreds and hundreds of families over the years. So essentially that's it: vitamins, minerals, free-form amino acids in place of animal protein, and high carb. What we figured out also was a lot of the formulas that we have here in the States that seem to work the best for the children are very high in maltodextrin carbs, and they definitely seem to need those. That makes a big difference in their energy, their growth, and low fat, kind of the opposite of how many of us eat, these days, but they just do not tolerate the fat. And in fact, they will lose weight, become sick. And this was just over and over again. We saw this so many times with so many kids at that. And it's always been a challenge because fat is, important, and fat is good. But nonetheless, the children seem to do very well. They're very, like I said, my daughter's been on this diet for 25 years and very low fat. And she's sharp as a tack and much smarter than I ever was. So.
Right. How does it differ between the age ranges? Because obviously with the AA diet, there's different amounts of things that you need for, say, an under 1 and 1 to 4, I believe is the range, and then over the age of 4. How does it differ between the age ranges?
So the diet, what we found is it's difficult the first 2 years. I won't tell you otherwise. It can be more challenging. Once they, after about 2, it seems like you get a hang of it, and you know what's going to work for your child, and you can figure things out a little bit easier. But I think it's difficult during infancy because we're told that our babies need a lot of fat, or it's going to impact their brain development. And of course, parents, that's the last thing we want to do. Thankfully in SMA, that's not affected, and we want them to have every advantage possible. So I think that honestly, even to this day, that hasn't really been explored because people, even medical professionals, it's not what they're taught. It's not what we read and what, we're told. But I know quite a few families that started a lower fat diet even before age 1. Their children did very well and are still doing well. And I'm not talking about, I don't really know anyone prior to 6 months, although it is possible to use an elemental formula so that the protein is in the amino acid form. But as you know, Kelly, all the formulas I think that you guys have access to are quite high in fat. So you can't really, adjust that very easily. But you can eliminate the intact protein, and oftentimes even doing that will be beneficial. So the first year is difficult. After that, honestly, people like to make big, it's not so much families even, but I think sometimes dietitians are, may encourage just to overfeed, and make big changes to the base diet. And what we found is really that, and again, I'm talking before treatments as well. So that's another issue. Kids may need more because they have more muscle intact, they're moving more, they have more function. But prior to treatment, really once families were able to figure out what base diet was going to work well for their children, really you only needed to adjust calories and just make small gradual changes. And the kids just overall do amazingly well.
Yeah, in the UK we use Neocate, which is obviously quite high in fat, but you can find that you can actually supplement it with the AA powder, the amino acids powder, so you don't have to give it much fat. But it's actually really, really difficult to get hold of here unless you have it shipped in from America at 140 pounds about a month.
I know.
So
I know.
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions coming in, Mary.
Okay.
So the first one, what is your advice for parents whose child's dietitian is not forthcoming with using the AA diet?
Well, that's difficult. I do think there's been, believe it or not, there's been a little bit of progress. Early on, it was extremely difficult. And just when I thought that we were making headway, because obviously they see these patients in clinic, they see the benefit, and then to not want to prescribe the diet and assist parents with it, even though the child is thriving and doing so well, is very frustrating. But again, until the research is there, things, that's how changes are made, right? Published research that shows that there is benefit. And I think one thing that helped us a lot here were when we started doing the nutritional labs. We started doing the quantitative amino acid profile, the essential fatty acid profile, and then that gave them a comfort level to be a little more on board. And it definitely helped with not overfeeding, which is a huge issue, is overfeeding our kids. When you have little, very reduced muscle mass and not much activity, and you do them a real disservice to overfeed.
Yeah, I think
so I'm sorry I don't have any magical way to except for that, just trying to work with them and let them see the positive changes. Here, a lot of families would do it on their own because the children just weren't doing well following the advice.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've done, and they actually reported me to social services, which I think is like CPS. Yeah, so it was crap. Now Great Ormond Street are actually starting to work with it. They called me in for a meeting before COVID, and they've got a doctor there, so who is very interested in it. So it seems like we are moving slowly with it. So for me, I think if anyone's really got any hard time with their dietitians, like here in the UK, they could contact Great Ormond Street and possibly get some help from them. Next question. I do not have a feeding tube. Can I effectively do the AA diet?
Yes. Actually, my daughter does not have a feeding tube. A lot of people don't know that. They just assume that she does, but she started it when she was so young that she adjusted to the diet. And so she drinks her mix all day during the day. And she does fast overnight if she's well, which thankfully is most of the time. And she was just able to adapt to that. Ideally, we know we have to be very careful with fasting. And some kids are much more prone to hypoglycemia and issues some only 4, some type 1 kids will plummet after 4 hours. I think for my daughter, having adequate high enough carbs during the day, she was able, and the type of carbs, the maltodextrin carbs are extremely effective in keeping their blood sugar stable. And she, from time to time, even when she's well, I'll check her ketones in the morning and she is fine. She doesn't have any. And so she can go a little longer period of time than some people. But so she sips her mix, her amino acids and vitamins and minerals and carb powder during the day. And then in between, she has pretty much a vegan diet.
Yeah. Is that how it works for the people who eat orally then? It's basically a vegan diet?
Yes. And really, she doesn't eat a whole lot. She eats less now than she did. When she was younger, she ate quite a bit, but she just is full. She's an adult, so she's not growing. So she doesn't need as much. And that was one thing that we had to figure out, was how to reduce her intake, but still provide adequate energy. And so that was a little bit of an adjustment, but yeah, she does very well and stays very stable on this, and her weight stays the same, which I know is an issue for a lot of adults. And she stays healthy. Thank goodness.
Yeah, there seems to be quite a lot of excessive weight gain when they're older, isn't there? So. Right. Next question. Do you need specific supplements for the AA diet?
Well, ideally, because we don't use the elemental formulas for complete nutrition, it's necessary to add in vitamins and minerals. And we pretty much follow the DRIs, for those things. So it is necessary to add in. Most people add in multivitamins and minerals. Minerals are super important. because when you're eliminating dairy protein especially, you can get low in calcium and things. So really just, I think caregivers educating themselves about nutritional basics is really going to be helpful and carry you a long way and give you the confidence to do it. So yeah, you do need to, you never want to use the elemental formulas. This is a huge mistake that's made, and the children don't do well at all, and it can be very dangerous. Using the elemental formula for complete nutrition is a mistake.
Yeah, we have
so we try to provide the majority of the protein from the formula, and when they're small we can do that, but even then as they grow, because we use weight and length for calories and protein amount and so forth, you know, you will get additional amino acid, free-form amino acid, essential amino acid supplements ideally, and add those for when you need to increase protein.
Yeah, it seems to be a big problem. There's a lot of people who say, oh, their child's on the AA diet, but they're actually only using Neocates with like 1 million scoops a day.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
No. It brings us to the next question, actually, because it says, do you need regular blood tests to monitor the diet?
I think when the children are young and they're growing and there's a lot of changes taking place, it's important. We were advised early on when we did have medical, you know, good guidance and interest in helping us, that definitely younger children under 2, under you know 4, 3 to 6 months, if they're doing well and things are going well and their energy is good, that, you know, just observing your child is so telling and is such an important guide. If your child is feeling good and growing and, you know, then maybe you can wait a little bit longer. Once they slow down in their growth, and then you can go further out. And for adults, really, I know adults that might go even a little longer than a year. We try to do it once a year just to make sure, but everything pretty much stays the same.
Right. Are there any online resources that people can show their dietitians?
You know, the dietitians want to see, like we said, published medical, you know, things published in medical journals. And even though we were always willing, provided funding, did everything we could to try to, you know, encourage them to do that, it was so difficult to have studies done and following the guidelines that we felt really gave the best benefit. So fortunately, over the last year, I don't remember exactly when it came out, but out of Canada, Dr. Kathari's lab, he and his colleague came out with some very exciting research, and that's on the AA Diet Facebook group. I believe I still have that pinned. And that was very good news and should have been an encouragement to medical folks to look deeper into this aspect, because it was a very well done study. A number of children and even older, I think maybe they had some young adults in it. I don't remember exactly the oldest age, but anyway, it was done very well. They monitored it closely, and they showed that there is absolutely a fatty acid metabolic issues, which we've been shouting for decades. But so anyway, and they actually mentioned the AA diet in that they could draw some conclusions, you know, that maybe why that is so helpful for many SMA patients.
I think most people can actually find the documents, that any research that's been done, on the actual AA page on Facebook. Yeah. I think they're all posted to there as well.
Yes.
Are they on the website, Mary?
You know, that's a good question. My daughter helps me manage that. I've kind of backed off of that a little bit, so I'm not positive if the latest published works are, but I will absolutely have her check that to make sure they're on there. Prior to that, we tried to put links to anything that came out. You know, there were a few over the years that would give us a little help, but this was, I think, by far the biggest and the most encouraging paper. to
Yeah,
come out.
I do believe there's a woman, Melissa Bowerman, as well. Who,
Yes, Melissa is excellent, and she's there by you, I think. And she's wonderful. She's always been very interested in the metabolic issues of SMA, and she's made some exciting discoveries and has published quite a bit. And she actually worked with Dr. Kathari on the other papers that I was talking about. Yeah, she was that she came from his lab.
right,
So yeah, so he's great. Has a real interest in metabolic issues, and yeah, Melissa continues to do that work as well. So
yeah, I think she's working with a Dr. Tracy Willis at the
yes,
moment.
that's right.
Yeah.
I had emailed with them a few times before COVID all happened and everything, and he's interested. So hopefully things will
I think they
improve.
wanted to set up a study with their patients, actually, who were on the
Yeah.
AA diet. That's what Tracy said when I last had contact with her. So, right, let's have a look at the next question. Are we best gradually introducing the diet?
Is it better to gradually introduce the diet?
Yeah.
You mean to, if you're on a dairy formula, to do part dairy formula and part AA formula?
I think that's what they're saying.
Okay.
Like, gradually.
So actually, we never found that was helpful, and sometimes that would cause issues because of overload. And just so the idea of the diet is to get off of the animal proteins, and how are you going to know, if you're doing that? It really, the children, overall, the positive effects are very quick, and you see change, and really there's not I guess my answer to that is we did not do it that way. We just would stop and substitute. I do think that it makes sense to maybe don't make a huge mix with all different kinds of vitamins, minerals, baby foods, because we add in purees and juices and things sometimes, and you want to add in new things gradually. But so you may want to have more water in your dilution when you first start, and then to see if they're sensitive to a juice or whatever, because some kids can be extraordinarily sensitive. It's
my son.
I know he is, yes. And others, don't seem to be as much, but yeah, some of them definitely have to, they might tolerate 2 ounces of a juice, but not 3 ounces, or they may not tolerate grape juice, but they tolerate, another fruit juice. So it's definitely a little tedious sometimes for more sensitive children, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it is hard work at times though. The chopping it,
Yeah.
like Vinny at the moment, I think he's sensitive to apples.
Oh gosh. Oh man. Yeah.
It's just a nightmare with it. But yeah, gradually I tend to introduce something for a week, and then if I get no issues over a week, then maybe try upping the amounts, and then see how we go. Because sometimes the difference between 50 grams of something and 100 grams of something in him is massive. So with the reflux and stuff, because obviously it's a major issue, especially with the weaker children. So next question. My child is getting to an age where they are wanting to make their own choice on food. How can I manage this, as I know that the AA diet is the best thing for them?
So I assuming that would be for an oral eater as well. And I think I have 5 children. My daughter with SMA is right in the middle, and we did not change the rest of the family when. And it was a little, there were some tears initially. Like I said, she was almost 5 years old, and but I think there's so many different substitutions now. You could have a little sorbet instead of ice cream. You could have, there are crackers. There are even, little bits of junk food that may be okay in very small amounts for stronger kids that aren't loaded with, a lot of protein or garbage, you know. Some kids are real sensitive to dyes and things like that too, and candies and things can have that. But I think it's just searching. And, you know, as my daughter got older, she realized, she was still quite young when she realized that she didn't want to get sick. She didn't want to go to the hospital. She didn't want to, you know, it's scary when they're sick, and it's upsetting, and, you know, it's just no fun at all. So I think as they get older, they're smart, and they realize that, oh no, I don't want a milkshake. I'll just have this little bit of slushy or something that's safer. So,
Yeah. I think it's just learning to manage as well what your child can tolerate as they grow.
right. Yes.
Because as they get older, they're going to know how they feel, aren't they?
That's right.
If they eat like a big lump of cheese and they feel
That's right.
crap.
Exactly. And the other thing, yes, that's true. And the other thing is when if they're drinking the formula, or they're having boluses throughout the day of the formula, it's filling. So
Yeah.
if you can keep up with that, they're not going to really want to eat a whole bag of Cheetos or, you know, junk food, because that is giving them energy and meeting their nutritional needs, and their tummies are full. So, you know, I think that helps too.
Yeah. So can you explain the different types of formula that there are?
Well, here in the States, we use mainly a formula called Tolerax, and you can, you know, look that up and see the ingredients and things. And the main difference in that formula is it's very high in carb, and it's extremely low in fat. And in fact, most families add in a little bit of additional fat as the child tolerates it, or as they tolerate it if they're an adult. But that's the biggest difference. The Neocate products that you all have there are amino acid formulas, but they're just they're lower in carbs, and they're higher in fat. And it's the fat that can really complicate things for the more affected children, especially.
It's the ALT levels we found with Vinny, like his liver function.
Liver enzyme, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Liver enzymes, oftentimes their growth. I'm sorry. Oh, the connection's a little
I can
bad.
still hear you.
I can't hear you. It's kind of frozen, Kelly.
Okay. Well,
I think Kelly might have frozen. So Mary, do you want to continue explaining about liver enzymes?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Kelly has frozen. So do you want? Can you continue speaking about liver?
Sure. Yeah. So we were talking about the differences in the formulas, and the formulas that you have there being higher in fat, and fat being problematic like it is for so many of the kids, especially more affected. It's difficult to use the Neocate products as a base, but you know, we do manage with the adding in carb powders, maltodextrin powders, and I can't remember what you have available there. We like to use Carbogain here. Soul Carb is one, and the Nutritia product is Polycal, I think. Maybe you guys have. And so just getting the carbs up, just getting the carbs up and getting the fat percentage of calories down. We used to say, you know, 10% of calories from fat, especially, you know, definitely as the kids get older, gives a better benefit. Some older go a little less than that and monitor closely with labs and things, but the children they're just healthier, less secretions, less reflux, better growth. So that's where parents find that their, you know, sweet spot is, I guess, as far as fat content.
Okay. Should people follow the calorie intake that is advised in general, or do they need to adjust this?
I'm sorry, Kelly. I only got like every other word.
Okay. That's okay. Right. Oh, caravan armor. Should you follow the normal calorie intake for an adult, or do you have to adjust it? Marnie, do you want to pick that up?
Okay, I'm not sure if I heard right, but if you're asking about calorie intake
Yeah.
for adults,
Yes.
so again, overfeeding is a huge issue, and of course it's the type of calorie as well. But like I said, for my daughter and other adults that have switched as adults to an AA diet and have done well, they usually require much less calories than what they were taking in before. But it's the quality and it's the type of calorie that they're taking in now that makes the difference. So maybe they wanted to lose a little weight, and that will happen over time, but because they're getting more carbohydrates and less fat and oftentimes less protein as well. So what we did, we looked at what would an adult of similar age with normal muscle mass and activity, even low level of activity, how many calories, how much protein, how much of all the different nutrients would they require. Obviously, if you have SMA, you're not moving, you're not, your metabolism is much different because of the lack of muscle. And so that's going to be something that you're going to have to figure out if you want to lose, taking in enough calories for energy, but not any excess, that would prevent you from losing weight. And the same if an adult is underweight, they have to be especially careful though, because you don't want to overload with amino acids. When amino acids go straight to the bloodstream and can build up and become toxic if you overdo. So I've always felt, and this is what we've seen work the best for adults, is if an adult with normal muscle mass that does not have SMA, if it's recommended, say 0.8 grams per kilogram of protein intake, well, we find that adults with SMA are going to actually need less than that. And it just makes sense. So not only are they getting the protein in the amino acid form, but they also don't need as much total protein. And that can, impact kidneys and heart and everything. So overfeeding, and that's kind of across the board, whether it's children or adults, that's a big problem.
Yeah. Okay. Which elemental formula is used as part of the AA diet for teenagers in countries where Tolerax is not available?
Well, it just varies, but most of the time the Neocate products are what other countries have. Yeah, you can also, there have been teenagers and adults that have experimented with the carb powders, the maltodextrin powders, and free-form amino acids. If they can get, we found that actually Melissa Bowerman, she was one that found that the branch chain amino acids, and we knew this from our own children and doing labs over the years, that the branch chain amino acids will fall off during puberty and rapid times of growth. And so that's something to really keep track of. Those are very important for muscle. And again, you don't want to overdo, but you want to make sure that if you do labs, you want it to be at least close to the range or maybe the bottom of the range. Again, those ranges are for people without SMA that have typical normal diets. And so if it's a little bit off, a little bit low, then that's never been alarming to us. It just gives you an idea if you're getting close to meeting the needs.
I just think over here the problem is because Neocate isn't recommended for over 10s. So as soon as
I
they
see.
hit over 10,
I see.
parents are struggling to get anything, and they don't
Okay.
actually know which way to turn.
Yeah, that's difficult. Again, I know families that have experimented making shakes or drinks with adding in, just getting amino acid supplements, essential amino acids. And those are the ones that you have to have in your diet. And we find the kids convert well. They don't have to have the non-essential, and they were able to keep those in range for the most part. So the essential amino acids, the carb powder, and then you know, just vitamins and minerals, good Maltese and things. And you have to, you know, if they eat well orally, then you may not have to add as much into the drink, the amino acid drink, but it's definitely possible to do that. And it just becomes difficult if you're wanting to meet all of the protein needs.
Yeah, because if they're solely tube fed.
Yes, yes. So I think, Kelly, you've used like the Now product, haven't you?
Yeah.
The amino acids. Does that work
They
well?
don't like it in the UK though.
Really? Why? Did it?
Because they don't know about it. Because they will only go with what obviously they're recommended via the NHS. So that is the Nutrition Essential Amino Acid Mix. But they also don't like providing that because it's extremely expensive.
Yes.
So I used to use the Now products. I eventually got the correct powder because they literally just went nuts because I was using.
Oh gosh. But did you think it worked? What was your opinion of it?
I haven't noticed any difference. His labs have always been fine. I haven't noticed any difference.
Right.
And it was £30 for a tub. So, but if they want to provide him with the nutrition product, then let them. But to me, I didn't see any difference in the
Okay, good. Yeah. A number of people use that. I've used it with my daughter even as well when I can't get the Nutritious Essential powder.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't think there's any trouble with it. It's just over here, obviously, things are difficult because it's so regulated. Hold on 2 seconds. Can you give some examples of a good AA diet? I don't know whether that's for oral eaters or tube fed though, so maybe both.
Well, so on the website, aadietinfo.com, there are some example diets on there. Again, it's going to vary from child to child based on their tolerance and the, excuse me, the ingredients that you have available, of course. But typically, if a child is G-tube fed or mostly G-tube fed, I would say, excuse me, I think, you know, most people add in some purees like baby food consistency, fruits and vegetables, juices. Some use nut milks, plant-based like hemp milk that provides a little fat. Just, you know, vitamins and minerals, of course, mixed in, blended all together. And I think that that's pretty much, I mean, we have type 1s that have been on this for 20 years and very little adjustments after they get past 2 and, you know, their growth slows down. And then again, past puberty and things, that just seems to work. So that would be a typical mix.
Would you recommend that parents check ketones daily as part of the diet?
I mean, I would say that most parents don't need to check ketones daily. I think during illness or stress, if they've had surgery or they've just had some type of stress, that's when maybe if they've had a GI bug especially, and they're, you know, have not been able to tolerate their normal feedings and things. But I'm not really aware of, unless they had a particular diabetic issue or, you know, that the doctor recommended that. I think typically that would not be necessary. No.
Okay. Should the level of feeds or food vary day to day depending on the day's activities? For example, on days my child does hydrotherapy, should I increase the feeds or food, or should I just keep it consistent?
I think, sometimes parents, and I actually noticed this in my daughter when she was younger, if they're sweaty and they seem like they're depleted, maybe they worked hard and they need a little more, it's carbs really is what, if they need a few more carbs, and you don't need a ton more carbs. We always found that the kids would either, whether it was growth or energy, even just, 50 more calories, carb calories would make a tremendous difference. And so I think, I think it makes sense that if a child's more active and especially if they have more muscle, then they may need more than a child that's more sedentary, doesn't have as much, is more affected.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and then also weather, like, because I live in a hot climate, I was always very aware of fluids, making sure. But there's some variability with that too, though. Sometimes people give tons of fluids, and I'm just like, my goodness, that seems like so much. But, that can, tolerance and climate and just individual need is going to vary a little bit.
But don't you have to be careful if you go over, say, the 125 mils per kg, that you're not actually like washing them out?
That's right. Yes, I believe that. Yes, completely. And as the kids get older and heavier, that's going to fall off. I don't think most people don't stay at 125 mLs per kilogram when their kid is a certain way. Usually we used to say around age 4, but that can even vary because the kids can be either fluffy or super tiny and thin, so you just have to kind of use common sense, but you don't want to flood them, because then you can get into electrolyte issues as well. Yeah. So
decrease then as they get older. So they get, like, obviously it goes between 90 and 115 over the age of 4. Mm-hmm. So should you gradually decrease? Because that always confuses me with Vinny. Now he's 5.
Right.
I've reduced him to 115, but
usually it kind of naturally falls off because you will kind of stay the same but they continue to grow. So it's just naturally going to become less per kilogram, as long as they're, urinating enough and they're, you can tell if they're hydrated enough. Yeah. So
it's mainly the type 1s I find that are not enough fluids and everything's a lot thicker and a bit more congested.
Right. That's right.
Right. So can you give an example of what you should have on a daily basis? Basically like a daily log of a diet. I think you've got that, haven't you, on the actual website? There's examples, isn't there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just some ideas. And again, what's right, it may not exactly apply to your child, but just to give you an idea, just because it's like a foreign concept, and I think it's useful to look at those.
Yeah, well, I suppose you're just looking at your amino acids, your juices, and your purees, and then you just have to adjust it for your child. So
right, a multivitamin. A lot of people here use Nano VM, which has a lot of minerals. It's great because it has a lot of minerals. I don't think you have that over there though.
No, but you can buy it online. It's pretty easy to get a hold of. But we tend to use Ceravit over here, which is pretty much similar. So it's a prescribed one as well. So it's easy to get hold of.
Right. And sometimes it might be necessary as they grow too, to add in separate calcium, to add in, you need to watch their potassium, their calcium, and sodium, that's something that's missed a lot of times, but they don't, a lot of the formulas and the vitamins won't have sodium, and that's important. So you don't want to overdo, but you want to make sure that it's adequate.
Okay. So is vegan meat ever used in the AA diet?
I mean, I think there are some adults that, and there are more options coming on the market all the time. Can't think of one that I saw the other day with some kind of fruit, but it tastes like chicken. I can't think of what it is, but people seem to like it. But I thought, I don't know. I think looking at the fat content and, just looking at the ingredients and looking at the, the nutritional content of things is the best way to go for that. And then just giving a little bit, just take a little bit and see how, if you want to try something, see how you feel, see.
think that could be used with the tube-fed kids, though?
I don't know of anyone that does that with the tube-fed kids, especially type 1s that didn't receive early treatment. I haven't heard of good results with adding in,
Animal protein.
different protein sources.
Yeah. Right, let's have a look at the next one. Quite a popular subject.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it is. Hold on, right. Can we buy Tolerax in the UK or get them shipped from the US?
You know that, Callie.
Yeah, well, can't buy it from the UK. You would have to buy it from America. Amazon do it, and you can get it for like £500 a box.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is absolutely
crazy.
extortionate. Or sometimes on like the American SMA pages, they will actually like send it to you just for shipping costs. But it generally works between states rather than overseas. But I remember someone whose son sadly passed away, but she was getting it shipped in from America. But it's extortionate, absolutely.
Yeah, a number of us have sent it over the years to the UK, to Australia, to different places when we had extra. But it's hard. And then also if something happened and you're depending on that, that it makes families, caregivers nervous that they're not the supply won't always be there. But I don't know why you can't have it. It's Nestle Nutrition is who makes it. And, they need to set up a distribution.
That's based in the UK.
Nestle?
Yeah, I think so.
Really? Well,
we do have a base in the UK as well. You think we could get it? Oh no.
Yeah.
Nestle is in York, according to Marnie.
Well, there you go. I think you should pay them a visit, Kelly.
Yeah. God, they'd probably love me, wouldn't they? And Marnie also messaged and said it's jackfruit. Is that the one you're thinking of?
Jackfruit, that's it. Tastes like chicken. Yep.
She's like a pool of knowledge, isn't she, Marnie? Right. Is fish okay to eat when on the AA diet?
I know some type 2s and older, adults and older kids that may occasionally have a little bit of fish. And again, I think it's just, that's not part of the real AA diet. But I think once you do that and you find a baseline that works, and if you're strong enough, and that's up to patients and caregivers to figure out. Are you okay?
Yeah, it's a massive bang outside, and my daughter and her friend are out on their scooter. So I'm thinking, don't fall over because I don't want to go to hospital with COVID.
Oh no, definitely not. So yeah, I mean, it's not part of the AA diet, but I think that there are people that may and occasionally may enjoy something that's not traditionally part of it. And I think just paying attention to yourself and your child to see.
Right, so the next one is, do we need to monitor sugar intake whilst on the diet? For example, if a kid is having sweets or soda as a treat, is that okay?
Yeah, I don't think, again, obviously if a child's having soda and sweets, they're probably a type 2 or stronger. Yeah. And I don't think most families found it necessary to make adjustments based on that. Usually, oftentimes the problem is not enough. If you're following AA diet, you need to make sure they have a lot of carbohydrates because they seem to use those most efficiently for growth and energy.
Digest as well. Are we able to contact anyone to help us construct a diet?
Kelly. Yeah, I've kind of, for a long time, I did that a lot. Many days I would put hours into that, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. I felt like it was very important, and I knew that the help wasn't there. You know, people were on their own, and when they really wanted to try it and were encouraged by other families. So I think I've had to back off I'm getting old, but I also, you know, caring for my parents, and, you know, I'm still my daughter's main caretaker, and I have other children. I'm having a grandson in a couple weeks, my first grandchild. So I've had to back off a little bit from doing, you know, exact diets for families, but there are people on the Facebook group that are, you know, have a lot of experience, and you know, you can get opinions there. And like I said, Kelly's the across the pond go-to girl. So she does a great job. But you know, you can't do everybody, so you have to.
I do fix everyone else's problems, but I struggle with my own child.
Well, I mean, it's true, but sometimes people just need a sounding board, and you need to communicate. I think it's important that you all have each other to communicate and troubleshoot with, because somebody probably came across that issue with their child. And
100%.
You know, that's why the Facebook group is great too. Like I said, I'm not on there nearly as much now, but there are some super smart caregivers and experienced people there, and somebody's always willing to give some advice and share their experience.
Yeah, 100%. Hold on. Right. Maltese Deficiency in SMA. Someone's read that it's common in SMA.
Maltese?
Yeah, Maltase.
Yeah,
Maltese.
I'm not familiar with that. I haven't seen that. Yeah, I guess it's like a carbohydrate, maybe, but
yeah,
I haven't heard of that before in SMA. I'll look it up though.
Yeah. Is there any more research being done at the moment?
You know, I haven't heard, of course, with the gene therapy and Spinraza, and then the other Ristaplam, you know, that everything else is going to take a back burner to that, which is understandable, especially for the babies and the young children, you know, that can benefit the most. But, you know, there's still a number of us that weren't able to get those treatments super early or early enough to not have some of these issues, the metabolic issues and things. So I'm not really aware of big studies. Like you had mentioned, Melissa was trying to work with someone there in the UK. And there's also a doctor in Italy, I believe, that was looking closely at diet. And
who's that?
I can't think of her. It's a woman. I can't think of her name right now, but she had been in touch with the lab in Canada that did the metabolic research, and she had a number of patients, and she was definitely seeing a difference. And I just haven't followed up on that recently, but I hope they're still looking at it, because, you know, there are a lot of patients that I think still benefit. And even some patients that have received early treatment, they report on the Facebook group and in Messenger and stuff that there still are issues in some kids. Some seem not to be affected at all, and they have perfectly normal diet, and others seem to still be sensitive.
Different levels of strength, even with treatment.
Right.
I mean, Vinny wasn't old when he received it, but he's still relatively weak. But he was always going to be a weaker type 1.
Right.
So,
right.
So
right. Like my daughter she's a weaker type 2. You know, so she's very much more affected in her arms and hands, and than a typical type 2, and she always was, you know. So
I'm just going to see if there's any more questions. No, Mary, I believe that is all the questions.
Okay.
You coming in, but yeah, we'll end the webinar. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it. It's nice meeting you in person.
Nice to speak to you actually in person.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I did too. Thank you. And I hope everyone found that really interesting as well. We've got the next webinar on Monday at 7 p.m. with Dr. Dan O'Connor from the MHRA. and he's going to be giving an intro to medicine regulation. So you can all tune in for that. So yeah, thank you again, Mary.
Thank you for having me. Take good care.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Good night. Bye.